As you look at how the military is operating now or plans to operate, for instance, the Army wants to be highly mobile, dynamic, distributed at the tactical edge, but it wants to have an abundance of data at its fingertips and, in order to make rapid decisions at lower echelons. And we're seeing this play out in units like the multi-domain task force, for instance. So what challenges does this create for data management and for cybersecurity? And I'll turn that over to if Mr. Wynn wants to talk about this or Colonel to start, and then we'll go with Mr. Bishop if he has any thoughts to follow.
Mr. All right, Wynn? Jen, I'll go ahead.
We'll go with Colonel.
I'll go ahead. I didn't hear anybody chime up, but too easy. So valid question. So for the electromagnetic warfare specifically, the challenge we have with data and the echelons really comes into the overclassification. We've traditionally collected the data within the SIGINT production chain, meaning it was already classified in writing Title 50 infrastructure, and the commanders in contact, when we look at rapidly moving and potentially isolated forces, won't have that connectivity real time all the way back to the strategic base that we came to know and love through the last 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, where all of that capability was really piped all the way forward and back from the NSA main to the tactical edge. So as we look at how we re-envision the data, the classification, and versus the data security, when we talk about the data we really need at ingest, it comes down to how do we take the data off a sensor, bifurcate it so that the SIGINT and the intelligence professionals get the data they need, while the command also gets the data they need to retain locally, and how do we make sure that that data is available without being overclassified? What we don't really have right now is a data classification guidance from a policy perspective that guides that data all the way to the tactical edge and all the way back, so that we understand as we carry that data forward, how it's secured, what means it's riding on, and how we look at the Title 50 versus Title 10. Those are some of the harder challenges, but as we look at these, we'll talk more about the compute and how we think about through these mission sets later. We'll get into that as well. Mr. Wynn?
Hey, thank you, Colonel Brock. So before this, I've only been in this job for about a year. Prior to this, I spent about 2.5 years with More4 Cyber as the tech director. So very involved with thinking through, expeditionary cyber. How do we defend the data forward and so on? And then, how do we enable the stand-in force for the Marine Corps and so on? So spent a lot of time thinking through this. So my mental model, my mental framework, and when I think of this is I break out to 3 areas. So applications, data, and then transport, right? Those 3 things need to be think through together to then identify the way ahead. So, for example, at the edge, from a cybersecurity perspective, in a potential DDoS environment, what set of applications do I need, and what kind of functions do I need for those applications? And then, based on that, what data do I need to perform that functions that I need from those applications? And then, from a censoring perspective, what are the data from the different platforms or wherever else in that local network that needs to be fed to my system, right, locally? And then based on my transport available, how much of that data can I send back? Or how much do I need to process forward with the local data until I have a more robust bandwidth or transport to handle back? So those 3 areas from a application, data, and transport are the 3 points of a triangle where I try to balance in doing the analysis based on the mission needs, right? So what we were doing in the Marine Corps and same with the Army is moving a lot of our big data platform and software out to the edge with a local platform to enable local processing and whatever else, and then identifying a subset of data that needs to be sent back to the higher, then identifying the transport to move that critical data that needs to be sent back. And then the other piece, the last piece I would say is we also identify, when we build the analytics up in the cloud and whatever else, we also try to account for the limited processing that would be available at the edge to be able to be able to conduct those analytics. So those are the things we were thinking about.